Well, here we are again, back for another episode of Chasing Labels, spine number 33. Here we are. Yeah, we do spine numbers here. I know it's not as collectible podcast episodes. You should be like putting these on physical media and putting them on your shelf. Not as cool, but maybe one day, maybe podcasts will be like boutique labels. I don't know. But as usual, I'm Stephen Billings, and we're back. Me and Andrew Cabral. How you doing, man?
Doing good. This is spine number 33 or episode number 33. I don't think I ever told you this, but I think 33 may be my favorite number.
Well, I mean,
I'm not just saying that for the show.
I don't remember you telling me that on the first show we did. So yeah, this is the first time I'm hearing that. Why is 33 your favorite number?
I don't know. I just always like the way it looked. The double threes.
Is there is it not something to do with a sports player? Because I know you're a big sports.
It may or may not have to do with my favorite basketball player.
Okay, see, now I found it. I found the root to it.
So that's maybe what it is.
But yeah, we're here for another 33. Episode, and we once again have a fantastic guest ahead of us.
Yes, we do.
He is he's done a lot of work primarily with Vinegar Syndrome. He's a producer. He does a little bit of his own stuff. He's going to tell us all about it. Mr. Brad Henderson, man, how you doing?
Good. How are you? And thanks for having me here.
Oh yeah, we're great, man. We're you're a little bit you're behind us. You're out there on the West Coast. You've had a work day, I'm assuming, and we did too. And now it's about 11 o'clock here. So this is the latest podcast. See, Andrew, he's a night owl. See, he loves this. This is like this is amazing for him.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. Me, I used to be a night owl, but now I feel like I'm getting old with my job's wearing me down, and now this is usually bedtime for me. Not even. I mean, I was probably actually in bed 2 hours ago, but I got to be up for this. I mean, this is gonna be fun. So this is worth it.
My night doesn't really start until probably like 9. So.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Well, damn, we got shit at the beginning.
2:30, 3 o'clock most of the time.
Just what is it? Just watching movies.
Yeah. I mean, just catching up on stuff, because the work kind of like, with what I do, it's not like a 9 to 5 thing. It's like all day. Oh, so, and plus, honestly, like the day kind of starts later most of the time. Like I get my personal stuff done, like stuff I can do with the people at VS, but sometimes my day doesn't like fully start like contacting people, talking to people, having this conversation to like 11 o'clock my time, because everybody, typically 90% of the people that we deal with, are out in LA. So we call people 8 a.m. It's 5 a.m. there. So like I have to wait. So, and then in return, it goes a lot later, and it's just kind of an all day thing. But again, it doesn't really feel like work half the time. So
that's the key, right? That's the key, is to have something where it doesn't really feel like work.
Yeah. No, it's great. Yeah. So in the evening, family time, and then, watch, I'm always watching silly shit. So.
Oh, I'm following you on Twitter. I see what you're watching. Some of the, I'm like, so you watching that with, you got kids?
No. Usually everybody's in bed. No one wants to watch the stuff that I watch. So.
Oh, I mean, I'm right. I don't have kids yet, but my wife, if I say, hey, you want to watch Six Streams? Actually, she did watch Six Stream Samurai with me, which we'll talk more about that. But she was like, I don't know if I like this, but I can't keep my eyes off of it. And I'm like, I know, right?
yeah, that works. I mean, as long as something's interesting. I always say that, I can watch a bad movie or a movie that's not, good, as long as it's not boring. That's the worst. That's the worst thing you can do, is have a boring movie. It's not every movie's going to be great, but Jesus, man, don't make a boring movie.
Yeah. Andrew.
Yes, sir.
Talk.
Oh yeah,
you're here too, ain't you?
So, I am here. I'm just a little.
I get caught up. He gets caught up in our conversation when he needs to help.
Get caught up. Yeah, I get caught up in all kinds of stuff. I'm kind of, getting my head in the game right now. But yeah, so we just getting into your work and getting into what you do professionally, I guess more personally, as you said. We know you are a producer of Vinegar Syndrome. And Vinegar Syndrome, of course, is a boutique label that we've talked about here many, many times throughout this podcast's existence. And most recently, I think Stephen and I personally, within our collections, have been diving into all of the work that you guys do there and really becoming full aware. And I think more people are becoming full aware of Vinegar Syndrome. Have you seen kind of an uptick in popularity or notoriety over the last, couple of years or so, or has it been steady,
Yeah, I
steady
mean,
throughout?
I followed Vinegar Syndrome as a fan. When they kind of very first got out there. I mean, Night Train to Terror is the first film that I knew by them, because I was late night just looking on Amazon, looking at movies and shit, and I saw
Right.
Night Train to Terror on Blu-ray, and I was like, this has got to be a bootleg. So I like click on it and I look at the description. The studio was on there, Vinegar Syndrome. So I like looked it up and I was like, fucking maniacs. Who, why are they doing this? I mean, I love it, but at the same time, like, what kind of money is in releasing Night Train to Terror? So like, I was writing at the time, and I contacted them, and I started like reviewing their products and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, I was just kind of a fan watching them grow, to basically, a few hundred people knew who they were, grow to 1,000, and then now, I mean, now it's huge. So yeah, I mean, definitely over the, especially when I was very first hired, just kind of I was doing a little bit of contract work for him, like, about four years ago, I guess. Yeah, 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
So just kind of going with that, and just kind of seeing like how they were growing and what we were doing, and then getting more involved, and being part of the acquisitions, seeing what we're able to do, the films we're able to get. It's just it's growing rapidly in a way. And like this next year, or sorry, it's January now. This year is going to be absolutely insane. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it seems like you guys every year, at least for the last couple of years, have just grown bigger. The releases have been bigger and better, and just more. There's more fervor out there, I think, amongst the collecting and movie community.
Yeah.
And that's been kind of great to see. So I actually was just going to ask you, how long have you been at Vinegar Syndrome and all that, but you've kind of said like 4 years.
Yeah,
or so,
yeah. I started
or within
doing,
a certain time frame.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say within a certain time frame that you've been there.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I've known the guys pretty much almost from the beginning. James and Brandon, just bullshitting with them. I was a beta tester for Exploitation TV when they were launching that. I reviewed their products for a bit, and it was actually the Exploitation TV era that I was, like I said, I was a beta tester. So what they did is they scanned a bunch of films. They had some films they didn't have the rights to, and it was just locally to me to view it. It wasn't like they were pirating anything. But yeah, I was just so that way they could see with the bandwidth, see if everything's working. And I was just scrolling through their catalog, and they had like that's what I said, they had some stuff on there that they haven't released, and it was two of the films were House of the Dead and The Severed Arm. And I said, hey, are you doing these? Because I would love to be a part of those at some point, because those movies are very, very, very important to me ever since I was like a little kid. It was like one of those things like, hey, we're thinking about it. There's a lot of problems, with rights and whatnot. And I said, well, okay, cool. I just, it's something I'm really interested in, because before that I was looking into starting my own label at one point. This was like before Night Train to Terror. And when I was breaking it down and everything and kind of getting into it, I was like, oh my God, this is too much for one person. I can't, like, if I bomb, like you have one movie and you bomb, you're done,
Yeah.
Because you got to sink so much money into it. And I was just like, it's not financially smart, with my girlfriend in college, and I was in school at the time. I was like, we didn't have any money, so it's just like that'd be a really bad choice. But anyways, so I said, I'm interested in this because I've been, I know film rights, I know prints, I know where material is, and James said, well, if you got a handful of movies, see what you can do, pass them on. And I said, okay. So like a day later, I came back with like 5 movies, and And he was like, oh, okay. I thought you were just kind of, you know,
Thought you were
I thought
kidding.
you were joking. I was like, no, no. It was like I had the suckling, flesh-eating mothers, L.A. Wars,
Oh yeah.
uh, Splatter University. So yeah, it's just like those films. I had in, I said, hey, this is I know how to do this. I've been looking into this for quite some time, and just studying film and contacting filmmakers ever since I was basically like 13 years old.
Yeah.
So I knew a lot of people, and I said I could be utilized, and then essentially that's what it is. It's just like film history, historian, stuff like that, and just I wasn't just blowing smoke per se, I guess you could
No,
say.
no. And actually, that brings me to kind of like, I guess, a segment we have with all of our guests is kind of, well, you're getting into it already almost naturally, is the origin story of your love for movies seems to go back to your very young age.
Yeah, it's about
Kind of.
4 years old is when I
Yeah.
can remember. And I posted this on social media years ago because I said something. You always have like a troll that comes out. I said,
Oh,
I've been a fan of these movies since I was 4, and someone said, "Oh, bullshit! No one's letting their kids watch this like at 4 years old." And I said, "Okay." Well, what I did is I had a family video that was October of 1987. I was
good
born
year.
in November of '84, so I was 3 months, 3 years and 11 months old, and it was my parents. We had the Freddy outfit, and I had the glove, I had the hat, I had the mask, I had like a little sweater, and I was
Nice.
doing the rhyme, and like my mom was dressed up as Jason and stuff like that, and we were just playing around in the living room. I was doing the 1 2 Freddy's gonna get you. And I was like, yeah, here's proof. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah. They can't
my
get much more concrete than
yeah, my
that.
mom exposed me to this stuff when I was very young, and it just kind of stuck. And yeah, I mean, ever since I was little, I was watching horror films. My mom loved horror, and she wanted to watch them, and she said, as long as you don't have nightmares, you can watch them with me. So yeah, I was watching all that stuff. Well, I mean, not even 4. I was 3. three
Yeah,
years old,
yeah.
and I knew the rhymes. You know, I, I liked Jason. I liked, Freddie. I liked all that stuff. And as I got older, and I started to develop my taste, I started renting stuff, from the store, and watching it with my mom. And I mean, yeah, it's just, it goes back to then. And I just wanted more and more and more, and wanted to, study about it, read about it. Um, Film history, talking to filmmakers, emailing filmmakers. I mean, I told this story on, another show, or, just in general, is that like one of my very first contacts when I was like 13, 14 years old. I was emailing Mark Ezra and George Dugdale from Slaughter High. We were emailing back and forth, and I wanted to be a writer even at that age. And I was working on my
Hmm.
very first screenplay, which was modeled after Phantom of the Mall. Um, and they read it, and Mark was like giving me feedback at 13 years old, like, hey, you need to do this. And we were and he had Slaughter High, he had a few other films, and George got, it was mainly Mark, but George emailed me a couple times, and because I was a big fan of Slaughter High when I was young. I really liked the revenge, someone being wronged. But I like Phantom of the
Hmm.
Mall. I had an article in Fangoria recently that kind of went into detail of why I like, even though it's a goofy ass slasher movie, there's
It
there's
is.
there's
Yes.
there's a really cool thing behind it, of where Eric's not really a bad person. Like, we have these like Cropsy and people that were wronged, and then they come back for revenge. In the original script, because I wrote to Scott, when I was in my teens as well, and told him how much I love Phantom of the Mall, and he sent me like the original script. And
Wow.
it was vastly different. And I was reading the script saying, oh my God, like, this movie needs to be made. Fuck the movie that they made. Like, this is great. And I really like the aspect of the bad guy being the good guy. And so when I started writing my own script, it really went into that, where I was like, this anti-hero, like he's wronged, but he's bad, but he's killing these good kids. But like, because like the thing is Eric kills people that are in the mall that necessarily aren't bad. He does kill the bad people, but in the original script, he does it a little bit differently. But you really feel for him, and in the movie that we get to see, like, he tries to get her to, like, I did this for you, blah blah blah, and she's like, you're crazy, and he's like, no, I'm gonna kill everybody and burn down the mall. Like, he really, like, in the original script, he's good friends with the love interest. That was his best friend in the original script. That the love interest that is in the movie, they actually are really good friends in the original script. And then there's like this really sweet handoff where she's like, Eric, I'm in love with him now. And he's like, well, I need to protect you. You two need to get out of the mall. I'm going to go kill everybody. And that's what happens. And it's like, this is great. Like, this is like a great revenge movie. He's like crazy, but he has like this sense of like, humanity, to where he's not this controlling like animal in the movie. And Scott, of course, is very much like, doesn't like what they did with the movie, even though I still love the movie dearly.
Right.
But anyways, I forget how I would get off on this tangent, but yeah.
Well, I was just we were going into the origins of your love for movies.
Yeah. Obviously, I mean, essentially that's what it was. And just more and more and more and more, I started writing. I started writing about movies, reading about movies, all this stuff. So yeah, I just, like, anything that was movie oriented, I got into that and tried to do whatever I could if I could get my hands on anything.
Yeah, I think we're all relatively around the same age, and we were all fortunate to, I think, grow up in kind of this boom of the home video market, whether it be VHS or then DVD and then Blu-ray and subsequent onward. And I think a lot of that is kind of developed our formative years of loving movies, because we had so much access to it, whether it be the movie theaters or, home video. And it sounds like you had just a heap of ambition as a young film fan, which obviously has translated to modern day. It's kind of interesting how that goes.
Yeah. And also, that's, like I said, it was just, and my mom was a big drive behind that, is that, she, really enjoyed watching this stuff with me. And then, I just kind of took over, and to the point where, I was fortunate to have like these really awesome video stores close by. We had the grocery store Albertsons that had, and Winn-Dixie, when grocery stores actually carried movies, and they always carried weird shit all the time.
Yes,
they didn't have the popular stuff. They always had like the 99-cent weird titles. So we had two grocery stores that had video, the video rentals. And then we had a place called Video Hut that was a mom and pop place. I had a Blockbuster for like the bigger titles. And then we had a movie gallery, a Hollywood Video. And then we would spend summers in Ohio, where my family was from. So we would go up there and spend like 2 months and just like visit with family. And there was a place called Video Time there that just, like, it was a huge video store first off, but like their horror section, I mean, it was massive. I'm talking maybe like at least 1,000, 2,000 tapes of just horror titles. Like it was when you would walk in, they had the up front, they had the front counter, then they had the back room that was the side room, and then starting on that wall, they had basically 3 walls. It was like maybe went to like D, and then like E to like, I don't know, R, and then S to Z. And it was
that's incredible.
Just insane.
You don't see that now.
No. And I mean, honestly, it was
past.
one of those things I never saw again. Like, even like the horror sections at all these other places, like they had movies, but like it was the person that was really running this Video Time really liked horror, I think, because there was just so much. And then like during the summer, I loved going to Ohio during the summer, one, to see family, but two, because I knew I was going to go to that video store, because my family spent time with their family by gambling. So they would go to bingo and casinos and horse races and stuff like that. And I would spend time with my grandfather, and they would just take me to the video store and we'd watch movies. So they would pick like a couple things, like, an action movie or a thriller, a new movie. And then in the evening after they went to bed, I would have like, 2 movies myself of like weird horror titles. And that was like my education, was just having just this plethora available wherever I went. And I just wanted more and more and more. And then in kind of my mid-teens, that's when I was like kind of running out of stuff. My mom would take me to boot conventions, VHS swaps and stuff in Tampa and Orlando. And I got some really rare stuff there. I became friends with Sage Stallone, Sylvester Stallone's son, when I was like 16. We became friends online, and he was sending me stuff. And that's when I got some really weird stuff. It's even stuff today that is not even on IMDb still. It's just like really rare, foreign films. It's just like a mixture of stuff. I'll never forget is like Sage sent me the Gone with the Pope, like when I was 17, and that movie didn't have an IMDb for a long time, until Grindhouse, Bob put it out. But it was just a big mixture, and everything I wanted I consumed. And then I got into foreign stuff. I got into musicals, westerns.
That's
dramas.
one thing I was going to ask you about. Obviously you probably don't work on everything at Vinegar Syndrome, but like, the way Vinegar Syndrome has most of their titles being a lot of them being very underseen films, especially horror films. Like, I don't know. Is part of your job picking titles to present to Vinegar Syndrome? Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the work that is on that end is Joe and myself. We're kind of the acquisitions team. I mean, other people obviously make suggestions, and we within the company, we talk it over, or we kind of like okay, what would do well? What do we think that people would like? So there's quite a few films that, like the Homegrown Horror box set, that was, originally that wasn't, a thing. It was, it was more or less kind of a collection of movies that we all loved. Joe and I really loved Fatal Exam, which was pretty much unheard of. It didn't even have a VHS release. It never had one. It was just available in Missouri at the time, and then it got its life through piracy. Really, that was the only way to be seen. And I came across a copy of it when I was probably like 18 or so. And I like that. Winter Beast was a film that I've loved since I was I got the DVD when I was in high school, and I knew Mark, so that was something that I wanted to bring to the table. And then Beyond Dream Store was something that Joe really likes. So it's it's still a collective thing as far as Vinegar Syndrome, but there's a lot of titles that we bring in, by the love of what we have, that are championed by us, and then we come together. And like Six String Samurai was something that I really loved, and when I brought it up to everybody, they were like, oh shit, that's we love that movie too. So that's kind of like how it is. There's just so much. So it's like, once you find the rights and the material and it's available, or you have something where, like LA Wars was one of the films, like I said, that I brought in the very beginning, and no one really knew of it, like as far as like anybody in the company. And they watched it and they were like, it's an action movie. We're not doing, action movies. Yeah. And I said, well, we should. I was like, this is a really funky, weird one, and it's been a favorite of mine for years. So, it's like, we call it like your baby or something like that. I mean, yeah, there's stuff, films like that, but yeah, it's a lot of just Joe and I's brains working through, and we'll text each other, and Joe is very, very similar in how he was raised and how he got access to films, very, very close to how I am. So when we first met, we connected really well because we're both psychotic when it comes to this type of thing. We're a little obsessive, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
To where it's like, okay, I saw all this stuff. Now I'm going to actively search out like really hard to find things.
Well, that's one thing I was going to ask you about, is because like I find it, especially with like Vinegar Syndrome, is like these titles seem so obscure. I wonder, like, the people that are coming up with picking these films to do these releases, did they already know about them, or did they like have to like discover them themselves? Like, because they seem so like there's certain films where like you said, you can't even find an IMDb for them. Are these films that you like just know about through your years of watching films?
Yeah, everything that's been released so far has, I mean, like, we're always watching news. I'm always watching new to me things, and there's stuff that I like, of course. But I wouldn't say that there's anything that has been released yet that we weren't a fan of or hasn't been on our radar yet. There's not.
Gotcha.
I don't think there's anything that we've watched and been like, oh shit, this is new to me. Hey guys, do you know this? No. What is it? Watch it. And it's like, no, none of that.
Nothing's
Go ahead.
Nothing's been a discovery full on yet.
New York Ninja.
well, yeah.
That was our discovery because none of us seen it. Yeah.
That seems like a discovery of the century.
Yeah, well, that's a good transition, because that was something that just recently came out, and that was a big undertaking. And I think I haven't been able to delve into all the features yet, but just watching the film, man, it's an accomplishment. I mean, like, that's to do all you guys did to make that thing into a working movie is awesome. So yeah, tell us a little bit about how that came about.
Yeah, so it all started 2 years and some change ago. It was actually when I was first like being brought in kind of I guess you could say full time to Vinegar Syndrome, because I was doing like contract work and like per project and stuff like that. And it was just at that time they were like, well, it's just silly that if you just don't quit your job and come work here. And I was like, well, yeah, sure, absolutely. You don't have to ask me twice. Yeah, of course I'll fucking do that. So it was like my first week. I get Ryan tells me, he's like, hey, we have this thing, and Curtis is kind of helming it. And I was, didn't really know Curtis at the time because I was mainly dealing with, Ryan, Joe, Brandon, and James. So I didn't really know Curtis yet. And, Curtis, he said he's going to give you a call. So I talked to Curtis, and we were kind of like, somewhat hired around the same time. When I was doing the contractual stuff like that. So we were both at VS for, maybe 6-8 months. I don't know. And he said, yeah, we have you heard of this movie called New York Ninja? And I was like, no, not at all. And he said, are you familiar with John Liu? And I said, yeah, I'm familiar with, some of his Kung Fu films, but that's the extent it goes. He's, says, hey, we have this movie that's unedited, and it's all these reels, and, we don't know even if it's all there, but we need to find John Liu. And I said, all right, well, that's what I'll do. So in the meantime, they're scanning, watching these movies watching these reels, scanning the film, watching it, and hoping really that we have a full movie, because we don't know. We talked to Arthur Schweitzer, who's the original producer of the film, who sold us the lot, who owned 21st Century at the time. And that's where we obtained it. And, he was still kind of cloudy on it. He just said, the budget went, they went bankrupt. The movie wasn't finished. And we're like, oh shit, so let's just hope that everything's there, really. And then in the meantime, Curtis is doing that, and then I'm searching for John Liu, and I'm working on it for like 8 months. Finally, I find him. It's really a dead end. Really no luck. He wants nothing to do with the movie. He doesn't have a copy of it because there was really no copy made. We heard at one time there was a work print of it, but we believe that it was the sizzle reel that they were watching, not a work print. And I mean, there could be, but we haven't had any proof of that. So anyways, John Liu kind of gave us a blessing, just saying good luck and, don't contact me anymore. Wow. They're like, all right, well, I mean, that's actually, in a way, that's kind of good because now we can do whatever the hell we want.
Yeah.
And then, I have another conversation with Curtis, and he's like, well, there's no sound either, and there's no script. And I'm like, what? I was like, what are you doing? Like, how do you, I don't know how to do this. So they're going by the slate and, helped us a little bit, the sequence of scenes. But when they put all that together, I mean, it turned out to be a really long ass movie, like 3 hours, something like that, of all the usable footage. And it just made no sense. Even like, and of course we didn't have a script or the sound, but the movie made no sense. So we had a meeting, and I was brought in. I was gonna produce the picture. Curtis is of course gonna write it, and we call it redirecting. He redirected the film, and then was the editor. And it was really Curtis and myself all that time, just kind of bouncing ideas off each other back and forth. And we just said, well, if we're gonna do this, let's just play it straight. Let's not make it funny. Let's not make jokes. Let's try to read what they're saying, read their lips. It's obviously a basic story. There's nothing intricate here. It's obviously a revenge movie. We just need to figure out what the fuck is actually what they're trying to do. So yeah, we started lip reading, writing the script, got the movie down to like an hour and 45 minutes, something like that. I watched it, we had a discussion. It kept getting trimmed, and I was just like, I don't want to overstay the welcome of this nightmare. So eventually we ended up with like, I don't know, 88 minutes, something like that, and then 91 with credits or something. So yeah, it was just all the deleted scenes are pretty much on the disc of the nonsense that's happening on camera. We added that they had that kind of the people dancing. They were just shooting that randomly. I mean, we used that for the credits. That was funny. But for the most part, I mean, yeah, nothing is like we're told like this is really funny. You guys did a good job. It's making it funny. And I was like, we honestly we didn't. Like, there's nothing intentionally that we did to make it funny. Like, everything that was in the movie, we believe is what they're saying. And when we eventually so basically I'm getting ahead of myself. So then it was came, we had the script, we had an edited movie. We started working on 3 Beep in New York. They started doing the sound because we had everything, every footstep, every noise that you hear in the movie is made up for this film. Like nothing existed.
Yeah.
So they started working on that. We were watching the footage as it came in, and they were just doing a tremendous job. Like, we were like, oh my god, this movie's coming to life. It feels like it's real. And then we started casting, which is a lot of fun. And we had a long list of people that we wanted to work with. So of course some didn't work out. Some weren't interested, some were busy, but eventually, we landed on who we had, and we loved every bit of it. It's just mainly Curtis and I throwing ideas off one another. The hardest ones to cast were the ninja and the plutonium killer. We had various actors that we wanted to do with the ninja. And it was actually just things weren't working out with the people that we were contacting. And Justin Liberty, who's our archivist, who eventually kind of took over the OCN portion, partner labels. You should definitely have him on. He recommended, Don the Dragon Wilson, and that just kind of, it worked really well. And it was the Plutonium Killer that was hard because, we were just going through various people, like what feels right. And I was watching something, and something about Michael Berryman. I was like, shit, man, what about Michael Berryman? And, everybody's kind of like, what has he done as far as like voice stuff? Like, he usually doesn't talk. He usually plays like a mutant, the bad guy. And I was like, yeah, exactly. He plays the bad guy. So they were like, can you send us some clips of like why you think this would work? And I didn't even send clips of a movie. I just sent them interviews with him, like watching, because Michael's actually like really, really smart. And he has a way with words. He's very articulate. And I was like, yeah, he'd be great. And they watched it and they said, absolutely, that might work. And, we did a reading with Michael, and Michael just fucking killed it. He did a great job. And when he was in the studio, he really, really got into it, because the voice is a little vocally demanding. So we were, we needed somebody that could really back that, but also, when we had not a table read, but we did, some sit downs with the actors in a group beforehand. And, it was, Vince Madurko, Linnea Quigley, Dawn was there, Cynthia. And it's like, we're not here to make fun of it. We're, don't try to be funny. And they were like, what are you talking about? Like, the movie's hilarious. And I said, well, yeah, but you're not going to be. Just say the lines, like,
that's the key.
Yeah, just read them, act and just be serious. And they were like, all right, and it was funny because in the studio they kept trying to like, do something like a little funny, and it's like, nah, let's like keep it real. Because the thing is like, I always get flack for this. I'm not a fan of riff tracks or Mystery Science Theater. I don't enjoy those. I'd rather watch the movie. And if the movie is funky and laughable, I'd rather watch it with like a crowd and laugh at it rather than having people tell me what's funny. And that's kind of how I viewed this whole thing, was that I don't want the version of the movie for everybody to see is the comedy track. You
don't want it to be self-aware,
right? And the thing is like, sometimes people, like, I'm like, hey, have you seen The Man with the X-Ray Eyes? And they're like, yeah, I love that episode of Mystery Science Theater. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I was like, that's the only way you saw this movie, is you didn't see it by itself. So yeah, I kind of have, like, I don't know, it's my own personal kind of beef with that, but I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to make that movie, the only version of this movie is comedic of something we did.
Yeah, I mean, a movie like the Room, for instance, which is one of the most popular bad
right,
movies, it would have never been as bad as it was if they weren't trying to make a good movie.
Yeah. And then
I mean,
that's the thing. And plus, I mean, this movie's New York Ninja was a wreck. I mean, it was nothing, and I was like, we got to really, let's just pretend we're in 1984 finishing this movie and being for real. And I mean, it was very nerve-wracking because, like, we did the voices, I saw a rough, finally got the rough cut. Curtis sent it to me early in the day, and I was like so busy. I was like out of town. I was getting back in town like at 1 a.m. And I was like, I got home and I'm like, oh my God, I gotta watch it. I've already seen the movie 100 times silent, but I haven't seen it with like the voices and, all together. I saw like a couple clips and, of what we were doing. And I sit down and I watch it. I'm like, man, I don't know if people are going to fucking like this, and then Voyager came in and just did an amazing. I was so nervous. about it, because Curtis really spearheaded that. I was like, what about the music? And he was like, there's this band called Voyager, and he sent me some tracks. I'm like, this is good, but it's just like, I don't want that synth sound. I don't want
Yeah.
I don't want because there's way too many of these bands that are making these fake movie soundtracks and trying to sound too retro and like, oh my god, I love Carpenter, so let me replicate that. But Voyager, when I listened to their stuff, I was like, okay, this is like their own thing. I'm, kind of excited to see where they go. And yeah, I heard like the rooftop fight scene was the first track I heard, and Curtis said, "Let me know what you think." And I listened to it and I said, "Shit." I was like, "It works."
Yeah.
I was like, "It sounds authentic. Like it doesn't sound like we're trying to be something we're not." Yeah, and Steve and those guys, it's just like it felt really real. It didn't feel like they were like, "Hey guys, wink wink, we're doing this retro soundtrack," and they totally understood. And honestly, like it was a huge save for the movie, because that was honestly, the music was probably the second most important thing for me. And they just did amazing. Honestly, it's way better than I could have imagined it being. So I was very excited to, when I first heard it, and with the film and the dialogue, I was just like, man, this is so good. But I was like, I don't know if people are gonna like this.
Well, I mean, especially for somebody that's seen it, you've seen the process and been in the process and seen it so many times.
Yeah.
You probably get to a point where you're like, dude, I don't know, man. Was this worth it? I mean, like, God, I've seen this movie like 300 times.
Yeah. No, we watched it a couple times, and then I was just like, all right, I'm kind of over it at this point.
Yeah.
When we were working on our premiere of where to play it, and obviously all this was happening during the pandemic too, so that's the otother the other big part of this that just complicated things left and right. But yeah, I know it was I've been good friends with Evrim Beyond Fest for a long time, and I told him about this movie when we premiered Tammy and the T-Rex restoration at Fantastic Fest in 2000, in 2018. 2018. Jesus Christ, time flies.
Yeah, it's a long time ago now.
Yeah, it was 2018 or 2019. I can't remember. But anyways, it was, we were in the early stages of the movie, and I contacted him. I said, if you want the movie, here it is. And he watched it and he said, yeah, absolutely. He's like, we're gonna have a big night for you. So
yeah,
it was a great place to premiere it.
Yeah, I remember when that happened, because Beyond Fest was happening. I think, was it in person or partly digital? I can't remember.
No, it was in person. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people. Yeah, I think it was because it was later last year when things were looking better and theaters were opening and festivals were starting back up and starting to kind of book for the future. And I remember a lot of people talking about New York Ninja when it premiered at Beyond Fest, because this was, I think, last fall. I think now, if we're talking about time frames for everyone. But it sounds like New York Ninja, you guys literally made that movie, like put it together. Or the only thing you guys seemingly didn't do was shoot the original footage, but everything else seemed to be Vinegar Syndrome literal production. Hence why you guys created the sub-label Vinegar Syndrome Productions, because you guys literally put that movie together. And it's kind of a work, as you could say, a lot of work put into it. Kind of a miracle of a film to be put together literally from the ground up like that. When it comes to kind of the other projects that you've worked on over the years, I know that you've worked on Fade to Black. I think I saw that you had worked on a couple of that. That's another great release, which I actually just recently got from the Vinegar Syndrome Black Friday sale, which we promoted here on the podcast a lot. And of course, you guys announced all kind of stuff around that date. Another big one was Flesh for Frankenstein, another big release you guys just did. That's actually the first movie I watched in 2022, right after midnight.
Awesome.
I actually watched it, like, coincided. I didn't even line this up because I know Vinegar Syndrome titles that we're going to talk about tonight. You guys dropped literally 12:01, January 1st was when they came out. So I kind of lined it up to where I was watching Flesh for Frankenstein. I had to pause the movie and then check to see what the new titles were at the same time. And as we mentioned last week, there is a replacement disc that is coming out later this month for everyone who bought it. So everyone just be patient on that, of course. And yeah, that movie, I was the first time ever watching it. What an incredible movie that is for its time and just for now. Just because it's been a movie that I know has been kind of in a bit of home media limbo for years when it comes to not only availability, but quality of availability. That seems to be really Vinegar Syndrome's thing. And what you can attest to is the fact that some of these movies have been available, but not in great quality. And Vinegar Syndrome always seems to bring the quality when it comes to the aesthetics of these movies, which makes them, regardless of quality, a great thing to watch. Because you're shocked at how great these movies actually look. And Flesh for Frankenstein was definitely a gorgeous looking film.
I appreciate that.
Despite whatever oversaturation issues there was with the disc and whatnot.
To clarify, that's only with certain
stuff.
TVs and players. It's actually not.
Really?
Yeah, it's
I
not.
didn't even know that.
Yeah,
I
it's not the disc itself. It was. I don't have the techie answer, but I know that because I mean it wasn't on our player. I mean we obviously do QC quite. We're pretty hard on the QC portion. Hence why we, there's not a lot of issues with our discs or at all really. But yeah, it was something that, we found out afterwards, that people were complaining about, rightfully so, and not, in a negative way. But yeah, then we were like, okay, what's going on? And yeah, the tech side of that, they figured out. I don't have the answer, but I just know obviously it wasn't all the discs. It was just certain players, certain TVs, I guess.
So a formatting.
I don't know. Yeah. It's something that, something that was triggering it.
Yeah, I mean, Steven and I have never been ones to complain about things like that, but there are people out there who get all upset about
they get in a tizzy,
things like that.
They get
a bit of a tizzy.
They get all amped up for the release, and that's great. They have that passion, but things like this are going to happen. I mean, I think it's great that you guys you jump on stuff like this quick, and you make it almost hassle free for most people, especially if you order direct. To get stuff sent right back out. So that's,
we appreciate it. Yeah, it sucks that happened. But yeah, sometimes things just aren't in our control. Things act up. So
yeah, and I would be remiss if I didn't once again mention the stellar release that I don't see a lot of people talking about from Vinegar Syndrome. And that is Six String Samurai. I talked about it last week. It was one of my favorite releases of the year that I got in my collection.
We did a 2021 favorite pickups, and
like top 5. And Six String Samurai was on my list. Yeah. I was blown away by the not only the effort put into the movie, but yet again a movie that I had not heard of since you guys until you guys mentioned it and put it out. You guys put out that kind of preview sizzle reel before the release, and it was the first time I had ever heard about the movie, and it was the first time actually I had ever gotten a kind of glimpse behind the scenes of Vinegar Syndrome, and just the sheer passion that's there at the company, and the fact that you're all collectively like diehard film fans, like you all have a passion for these movies and putting them out in the best quality possible, and having a genuine love for movies. It's really nice to see that, because when you're dealing with, not the kind of crap on mainstream studios, but there's a cold, almost machine-like process to, I feel, the way they put out the movies, like assembly line work. Like we're in a dystopian 80s 1984 film, and we're just like putting these movies out. But with the boutique labels, with Vinegar Syndrome, you see that passion in there, and we do have a bunch to go over Steven, you want to transition
Well,
into
well,
that
we
now?
gotta.
Or do you have more to, to ask?
There's one more thing I wanted to
Brad?
talk to Brad about. I noticed also,
Okay.
you know, he. I see that here in the next month or so, you do have a film that that you got coming out. Something you were actually acting in / produced. Blue Caveman. Can you speak to any of that?
Yeah, that is a work in progress of
Okay.
kind of a just kind of a yeah. Mike Delaney is yeah. So I helped like write a little bit of it. It's just kind of a friend thing, and I'm gonna be in it as Mike Mickelson. Yeah, so that would probably be something to look for maybe next year.
Okay.
I don't even know if it's going to happen in 2022. It's a long process of a no budget movie being made.
Are you trying to create your own New York Ninja for like 20 years
Yeah,
from now?
we're just gonna
like,
we're just gonna shoot a
Someone
bunch of
puts it
footage and
together.
then sit it down, and hopefully somebody discovers it, and we'll be.
and then like 20 years from now, somebody's gonna call you and be like, "Hey, can we can we bring this back?"
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, can
sure.
we put this together? You want in or not?
Yeah. No, that's just it's a project I'm just being a part of and helped out a little bit. So I'm excited to see where it goes, but I'm not heavily involved in it.
Gotcha.
I just it's the movie's transition from one thing to the other because of budgetary reasons and some issues behind the scenes. So the movie's getting reworked and stuff like that. And the things that I wrote, I don't even think are actually in the movie anymore because of that reason. But yeah, no,
Gotcha.
I hope
Rewrites.
yeah, I hope it turns out well. But yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. Well, Brad, thanks for sharing a lot of that inside info and stuff about yourself. And we are going to move into our kind of our normal format where we talk about some recent news or releases. We are going to get to the recent announcements from you guys. Sure. But first, we got a couple news tidbits, some unfortunate news, of course, with our headlines. We've had a couple big names pass in the film industry. One being director Peter Bogdanovich,
Yes,
well known for films like The Last Picture Show, and then of course the legendary actor Sidney Poitier. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. They both passed this week, and Sidney Poitier passed today, on the 7th when we're recording. And so yeah, I mean. Can you speak to your relationship to them in film, Brad? Were you fans of any of their work? Or?
Yeah. My mom was a big fan of a lot of anything that Sidney Poitier did.
Yeah,
but yeah, Peter he had some great films like Targets, Saint Jack, Last Picture Show. He just kind of had this flair about him with his films, a very kind of nuance. I don't give a fuck type attitude. Yeah. And like,
well, that it's that from that Roger Corman school, you know.
Yeah. He just he just there's not too many filmmakers like that, and honestly, not a lot that are still alive. And his last movie, he did that Chaplin movie from like 2018. It was really good that Cohen Media put out on Blu-ray.
Yeah, I think it was a Buster Keaton.
Oh yeah, that's right, Buster Keaton, not Chaplin. Buster. Sorry, yeah, Buster Keaton. Yeah, so the Buster Keaton doc that he did in 2018 was really good. But yeah, it's not too many filmmakers like that, and actors too. I mean, Sidney Poitier was 94, I think. So, geez, man, just like a hell of a career and a hell of a life. But yeah, no, it's two people that obviously well respected in the community. I respected quite a bit. Never had the pleasure of meeting either of them or speaking with them, but their work will be forever cemented into cinema history. So not a lot of people can live that life like that. So that's always a beautiful thing when you can achieve immortality forever through cinema.
Yeah. And interesting enough, I found a connection between these two. Peter Bogdanovich actually directed a TV movie, To Sir with Love #2, a sequel TV movie with Sidney Poitier coming back for his role in that movie.
Yes, he did.
So I thought that
Yes,
was
he did.
interesting that they just passed close to each other and they had worked together on something that was a significant thing for Poitier back in the day. That first, because I think what Indicator put out To Sir with Love on Blu-ray. That's
Indicator
got a good
has
release.
a Blu-ray of that.
Yeah.
I think. Who else has a Blu-ray of that? Kino or someone. But what is it? But I mean, these two for me personally, I think are just kind of all-time important people. Yeah, To Sir with Love actually had a Twilight Time release.
Okay.
Back in 2015.
Yeah.
And also an Indicator release. But I think for me, Peter Bogdanovich has been kind of instrumental and just a really important figure for me personally when it comes to just cinematic education in general. Over the last decade or so, really collecting a lot of classic cinema, a lot of just delving into the golden age of Hollywood, the post-golden age of Hollywood and all that kind of stuff. Delving into huge titanic people like Orson Welles, Alfred Hitchcock, all these, Howard Hawks, people like that. You would always see Peter Bogdanovich in the special features of these movies. And he would always either be doing audio commentaries or being interviewed about these people's lives because he knew them directly.
Yeah.
So he would always give kind of anecdotal stories about them at certain events or when they were together. I mean, I've said this a bunch of times. I think here or maybe our previous iteration of our podcast, the Cinema Discovery Project, Orson Welles lived with Peter Bogdanovich at one point in his life. Yeah. So they were friends, and Peter Bogdanovich was kind of a protege of Orson Welles. If you've seen the movie The Other Side of the Wind, which is hopefully getting a Blu-ray release at some point. Yeah. Movie came out almost 4 years ago now. Come on, give me that Orson Welles movie. It's kind of a play on their protege mentoree relationship and whatnot. And Peter Bogdanovich was just a wealth of cinematic knowledge. Like he was just a walking, talking, living, breathing version of cinema history. And in the same way, so was Sidney Poitier, groundbreaking actor, activist, all of those things. Some of his films we've talked about many times. In the Heat of the Night is getting yet again another release that we talked about last week, this time before K1. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner has gotten a couple of Blu-ray releases as well. That's an all-time important film when it comes to kind of talking about racial issues in the 1960s that are still important now. Lilies of the Field was a film he won the Oscar for, which is, I think, the first time an African-American actor had ever won a lead actor Oscar. I think there's only been 3 of them, maybe.
Denzel.
Just off the top of my head. Denzel, Forrest Whitaker, Sidney Poitier, and maybe another. I can't quite remember. I know I'm killing myself.
Well, I mean, if you're just talking
this.
about actors, it's very...
I'm just lead actors, specifically lead actors. I know Mahershala Ali has won twice for
he also did a film.
And Denzel has won as well.
He also did a film called A Patch of Blue. It's pretty...
Great film.
Really great, yeah.
It has a One Archive release. Yeah. Really great film.
But one more thing about Bogdanovich, I love the documentary he did... which a lot of guys from his era have done a lot of music documentaries, like Scorsese. He did "Running Down a Dream," the Tom Petty documentary.
Yeah, that's
really
true.
good.
Yeah, he did a few. Didn't he do a few things with Petty?
He might have. Yeah. He might. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he did a music video.
Probably.
A lot of them guys will do different things like that. But yeah, I really love that documentary. Yeah. It really made me fall in love again with Tom Petty. So. Yeah,
and I love it. Like, we talked about his early work a lot when we covered 1970s American cinema on Cinema Discovery Project. We did a whole episode about that era, of which he was instrumental, doing lots of work. I think The Last Picture Show is quite honestly one of the best films I've ever seen. And What's Up, Doc is kind of his remake of the Cary Grant film from the 1930s with Katharine Hepburn, Bringing Up Baby.
Yeah.
Kind of like his version of that with Barbra Streisand and Ryan O'Neal, I believe, Yes, and Ryan O'Neal, and it's a great film. It's available on Blu-ray through Warner Brothers and Warner Archive, but the original Warner Brothers release I think is out of print, and the Warner Archive release is the same exact disc, just much cheaper and has the Warner Archive logo on it. Unfortunately, when it comes to physical media, not all of Peter Bogdanovich's work has gotten the Blu-ray treatment or even like the DVD treatment. They're kind of tough to track down. I would love if that, like, now that he's gone, that his career would kind of live on through physical media. That would be super nice. And of course, he was an actor as well. He acted in a bunch of things. He was recently in the Get Shorty TV series. That was from a couple of years ago.
Wow.
I mean, he was still acting. He was in It Chapter 2.
Shit,
If you
I missed that.
remember the one scene that he's in, where he's like a director on a movie, not exactly a stretch of a role for him.
Yeah.
And of course, he was also on The Sopranos as well.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
played, for those of you familiar with The Sopranos, he played the psychiatrist of the psychiatrist character Dr. Melfi in the show. So he showed up in a few episodes, and I think he directed like 14 episodes himself
Oh yeah.
of The
yeah,
Sopranos.
Yeah, yeah.
So there you go. I mean, and of course, Sidney Poitier can't be emphasized enough. A direct link to a bygone era of Hollywood, just pure class, as they say, if that's too cliched.
No,
But
I think
sad losses.
Yeah,
Sad
I
losses
think
to start the year.
yeah, it is. I mean,
As well as Betty White.
I was gonna say
well.
as well as we also lost Betty White this past week too, man. I mean, it's I don't know what it is. We thought maybe going into the next year it would maybe get a little better, but I mean, a lot.
Yeah, the first week has been pretty
It's
rough.
been pretty rough. I think the first thing I saw Sidney Poitier in, I think maybe was a film that I don't know that anybody really knows of. Maybe because the subject matter is trying to get buried because it might be a problematic movie. But the fact that Sidney Poitier is in it kind of maybe it isn't so problematic because he's a smart man. He probably knows what he was doing. But he's in a movie called White Man's Burden. You ever see that movie?
I don't think I have.
I'm pretty sure that was
No.
Sidney Poitier. Maybe I'm thinking the wrong actor, but let me make sure before I start going down a hole
Yeah, before you start
thinking
saying
that I'm
things that
thinking
may or
about
may
the
not
right
be true.
actor. But here, let me real quick.
Yeah, he was in the Defiant Ones as well with Tony Curtis, where a Stanley Kramer film. Stanley Kramer not one to shy away from hotbed political
Okay,
issues.
I was
and
thinking of the
whatnot.
wrong actor. So
Oh, you were.
yeah, I was thinking it's an actor named Harry Bonifant.
Oh, Harry Belafonte.
Yeah. I was
Yes.
thinking of him. But yeah, so Sidney Poitier. Yeah, a lot of
Yeah, I mean, we could do a whole episode on Sidney Poitier
yeah.
because his career goes on for so long. Extending all the way back to the 1950s.
But before we get to end on a good note, it is Nicolas Cage's birthday today.
it is indeed.
So we could say, hey, he's still alive and he's still kicking and doing crazy stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you saw the trailer for his newest film where he's
Playing
playing
himself.
a hyper version of himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
So
looks
can't
fun.
wait to get. Yeah, please, Vinegar Syndrome. Please put out a deluxe edition of that movie when it's time for its physical media release. I can see that. I can see
Nicolas
that being
Cage
a big
box
one.
set, please. Nicolas Cage box set.
But our next subject we'll talk about is we got a recent update
Update.
from Second Sight about the Hitcher. And this is something that's been kind of out there for a while, along with Dog Soldiers is another one they've been kind of trying to get together and everything. But now they finally got us a nice update here. I think everybody got super excited about this, where they have found an original camera negative, which is a big deal over at Warner Brothers, and they which is another thing is like Warner Brothers is willing to go out of their way to look for something. I mean, like Warner Archive has been kind of like downgraded, but they found the time to go and look for a movie. So like,
I guess so.
that's great. I mean, it's fantastic. I'm glad it's not going away. Like.
Yeah, and I think Brad could kind of attest to this even more. You want to get as close to that original, camera elements as you can when it comes to creating a new master or creating these Blu-rays or 4Ks in general.
Right. So you definitely want, you definitely want the original camera negative when you're doing those things, because that's going to be your best source. Hopefully it's in good condition, I guess, is the other thing on that. But yeah, with the the OCN, you're able to do the 4K UHD. I mean, you could do 4K UHD on a interpositive or internegative, which is what we did the Beastmaster with, because the original camera negative was gone. But yeah, it's just you want that. And I think originally, I think they only had a print or something that they were working off of for the Hitcher. So yeah, the best you could do is just clean that up. You can't make it really look better per se, or do a you could do a highest quality scan and clean it up, but yeah, you can only do the UHD stuff if you have the negatives. But it also depends if those are in good shape, because if they're not, then you can't do UHD. But yeah,
then you have to do, I assume, some restorative work, and even then you're kind of limited, I guess, based off of the tech you have available, and I guess the budgetary stuff when it comes to original camera negative stuff. I know that there's been a Blu-ray of the Hitcher available in Germany for a few years, but I heard it doesn't look very good because
it's probably upscaled.
Obviously didn't have access to the original.
You said
camera
Germany,
negative.
right?
So
yeah, they're like a bootleg country.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but terrible things about
every German release that you have from a boutique company, for the most type, unless it's from like Turbine Entertainment, which they do great work. There's like a couple other, I mean, it's mainly the studio places, but any of those like boutique places like NSM Records or something like that, it's just the sound is so effed, and the picture quality, it's just all upscaled stuff that they have from like syndicated 720p television, or just the DVD that they've restored. So yeah, people, I remember, it's not so big anymore, but I remember like being part of those like Blu-ray groups and stuff, and like they would come out with these digital digi books or media books, they called them, and like people would be spending $75 on like Halloween 4. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, oh my god. I was like, plus the booklet's in German, like unless you can read that, what's the point? And they're like region locked, and like the sound's all jacked up. It's not a new transfer. No one's scanning stuff for these companies, and most of the time they're not even legal releases. I bought a couple German titles. Well, there's another one that their initials are, it's like CCC, it's something, but they do decent work too, but a lot of their stuff is upscaled as well, because I had like a German release of Alligator 1 and 2.
You about to upgrade that now.
I mean, it was just something I had because it was cheap at the time. It was like $10 on this site that would do imports. I was like, it's $10. And now that I remember looking like last year, and it was like selling for like $150 on eBay or some shit. And all it is like DVD transfer. Like one was the DVD transfer of Alligator, and the other one was basically the VHS of Alligator 2. I'm like, this is such bullshit. Like, but anyways, so that really that don't buy it. Do your research before you buy any. I mean, really any Blu-ray, to be honest with you. Because
there's a lot of, especially now, I think with a lot more titles coming out from more, I guess you could say, reputable sources. I think patience is key right now. I think patience is really key, because like you just said, we're getting a 4K edition of Alligator within the next month or two. Whereas like 2 years ago, people were paying $150 for a bad Blu-ray,
so like the DVD that was
is really paying off.
Available, that it was going for so much. I mean, it's like, I know that we all want to have the film because stuff isn't streaming. I think you were able to rent Alligator on Vudu for a little while, because I think Lionsgate owns the streaming rights to that movie. I mean, other than that, I mean, sometimes that's the only way to see it, which I get, but just save your money.
Yeah.
You know, we work hard
Yeah,
for
I
our
think
money,
I've only
man.
I think I've only had one occasion where I might even have one of them. I don't know if it's one of the better German releases, but recently I bought that Crash German
Yeah,
release.
it's Turbine. I believe it.
Okay,
It's
okay,
Turbine
that's one of the good
Entertainment.
ones then. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got one of the good ones, but then of course I ended up having to buy another one when it came. I bought the Arrow
Yeah.
version, and then
Yeah.
but
Turbine's one of
yeah.
the good guys.
Okay,
They
cool.
always try to do restoration work, and they're definitely a trustworthy company.
Cool. Well, yeah, but the Hitcher. Yeah, this is I love this film. I love that Australian exploitation kind of stuff, that genre. Rutger Hauer in this film is amazing. Yeah, I'm excited to see a cleaned up version of this because I think the last time I watched it, it was pretty rough, a rough version. And yeah, I mean, you excited about
Oh yeah,
getting a good version of the Hitcher?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing I have of the Hitcher is the Snapcase DVD that I still have.
Snapcase, yes.
Yeah, that
Yes, it's snagged on
HBO I
everything.
think put out. HBO always did snap cases, I think, but yeah, I mean, I'm just excited because the movie is extremely well shot, and yeah, it's just one of those movies that I've always liked, and I always get shit for this, but I'm also a big fan of the remake because I think they did a hell of a job.
Yeah, what was that, Sean Bean?
Yeah, it just
Sean
it just
Bean.
kind of ups the ante a little bit, and it's a little bit meaner. And they also play Nine Inch Nails Closer during a car chase scene, and the shit works so well with that helicopter and everything.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's so good.
Well, that remake was in a time where they were remaking tons of horror
Yeah,
films.
and it got pushed to the side, and I was like,
yeah.
No, rewatch the Hitcher remake because it's actually pretty good, But
I think I remember liking it when I was a little on the younger side when it first came out, but I think I remember enjoying it. I was probably like 15 or something.
Yeah,
but
I think there was another movie because I want to say that stuff came out like 2007. There was another movie around that time that I champion every like couple years on Twitter is Highwaymen. Slasher film with a dude that kills people with his car. And it's Rona Mitra, and then Jim Caviezel, however you say his name.
Yeah. Jesus.
Who's apparently a nut at this point now. But yeah, the movie is actually really good. It kind of got shafted during its release. It was going to be theatrical, and then it didn't. And I think Eric Red directed that too, along with obviously the original Hitcher film. And then there's that Hitcher sequel with Gary Busey's son.
Oh shit.
Oh, gee.
I didn't see that one.
Yeah. It's Hitcher 2, I've Been Waiting for You, or something like that.
Oh boy.
And it's
what a title.
And it's like it's so like I remember watching the movie, and it's so ridiculous because it's C. Thomas Howell reprising his role, and he just happens by coincidence to fall into this thing where it's the original Hitcher's son stalking him, and I'm like, this is the best you could come up with. It's just this big coincidence that happened.
Yeah. That's like sequel writing 101. We'll just have it be the son of the original character or child of the character.
Honestly, I could be wrong. I mean, I watched this back when I was working at Blockbuster because we got a screener of it. Okay. Because we'd always get movies ahead of time, like a couple months, like on a shitty like cardboard case. And I remember getting that and thinking, they made a sequel to The Hitcher? Like, what is this shit? And I watched it that night, and I was just like laughing. And this is like, probably like 2001, something like that. So, I mean, I haven't seen the movie in 20 years. I'm probably even wrong about the plot at this point. I just remember the movie not being very good and very laughable. I actually might enjoy it now. I don't know, because it came out at a time where I was like, remakes, yeah, that's stupid, and then I ended up liking a lot of remakes after I like rewatched them. That happened like with Dawn of the Dead. I remember they're remaking Dawn of the Dead. I'm like, this is bullshit. This is stupid. And then I remember sitting in the theater with my arms crossed, like, I am not gonna like this movie on purpose. And I was like, I walked out and I was like, this movie's trash. And it came out on DVD and I rewatched it. And I'm like, man, this movie's so fucking good. And I'm like, it's nothing like the original Dawn of the Dead, but goddamn, I love the remake of Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, it's got a nice, just obviously the Zack Snyder style, is
he's I don't know what he's doing half the time now, but he's like one of those directors. I kind of put him in the same aspect of kind of like Michael Bay, where there's this amazing amount of talent, but they always end up doing something fucking weird. And it's just like doesn't really work sometimes, and then sometimes it does, and then they all have like misunderstood projects. I think, I just assume they go into the project with like good intentions, but like the filming of it becomes a party, so they lose the direction. They seem like they're probably having too much fun while they're making the movie.
They're passionate. If anything, you could definitely see their passion all over the screen. Yeah, you could definitely see it.
But I mean. The Hitcher is going to be I can't wait for it to come out. It seems like it's probably going to make its way out for release probably somewhere maybe halfway through the year, possibly.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
But awesome. And so now we're down to our final subject matter, which Brad can really give us some down low on, and that's the releases for Vinegar Syndrome and the partner labels.
Yes.
We got a ton of stuff here. I'll go down the list of the titles here, do you want to go like one by one?
No, I figured we would do the Vinegar Syndrome.
Yeah,
the titles directly from Vinegar Syndrome first, talk about those, and then go to the partner labels.
All right.
And I guess Brad would obviously know these titles a lot better than we would.
All right, so. Okay, Brad. We're gonna go through all the Vinegar Syndrome titles and the partner label stuff. So. Go ahead and go down the list for us, Andrew.
Okay, let's get into this. This is what you all came here for. First up is a 4K edition of Dead Heat, starring Treat Williams and Joe Piscopo.
Yeah.
And next, yes.
You gotta say it like that.
Yes, you do. And next is Master of the World, but not the Vincent Price film that we talked about many, many months ago that was put out by Kino, but something completely different. Next is Fortress of America, but America with 3 Ks, so you kind of understand its implications. There also it's a trauma film, so obviously
that tells you a lot,
it's not going to be politically correct in any fashion. Next is a movie called Curfew, and then they're putting out their 4th volume of Forgotten Gialli, which I believe extends our couple of films from 1978 through 1989. This is a very popular box set series that I know Vinegar Syndrome has been putting out for a while now, hence why they're on the 4th one. And this has a couple of movies, Arabella Black Angel, The Killer is Still Among Us, The Sister of Ursula. So those are in there. And then last is a double feature of films. One is Anyone But My Husband, the other is Sweet Pumpkin. And I was remarking to Steven before I saw this, before the show, that those two films do not show up on any movie database because I think Brad can attest to that these are adult entertainment.
Yeah, they're Roberta Finlay's two films that she did 2 of her hardcore films.
Yes, as Vinegar Syndrome has been prone to release in the past, and we've discussed in the past. What's interesting is there was a box set of a specific director who delved into adult entertainment. I believe it was I think it was through Vinegar Syndrome, I can't remember, and I could find those films, but I couldn't find these, so I thought that was interesting.
It depends on the rate. I mean, sometimes if they're like just sexploitation, softcore things, they'll be on IMDb, but the way to search for them on IMDb or something is just Google search. and then it'll bring up. But it won't let you search within the app or the website. But it's a lot of people don't know that if you just search on Google, it'll pop it up, and then you can click and find out who did what and more about them or whatever it may be.
Yeah, well, luckily enough, you guys give enough of information to us for each film to know what they are, including, all the details that they're. I think they're both getting exclusive new 2K restorations from the original camera negatives, as most of these are, and then some are getting 4K restorations. I guess, Brad, for you, which one of these? I mean, it's tough to say which one is your favorite or which one that you like the most, but I guess more of a personal, a personal preference. Which one kind of do you gravitate towards?
Yeah, I'm a huge Gialli fan, so the Gialli sets are always my most favorite, and putting these sets together of all these films that I love, and Joe loves, and just us in general, because the whole thing is that there are kind of in a way only 6 Giallo films that are really relatively spoken about consistently.
Yeah,
that's kind of the basis of the box. There's some films in there that have had some decent releases that are out, like French Sex Murders and The Girl Room 2A, or maybe had Shameless released over in the UK or something like that. But yeah, the focus is just kind of bringing these films back out to people. There's a lot of weird ones that are definitely not talked about, and there's some kind of ones that are discussed within kind of the hardcore Gialli fan base. But I honestly, I think all these films are pretty new to a lot of people, aside from maybe French Sex Murders, which is probably the most popular out of all the ones that we've done in the boxes. I don't know. But it's I've been a hardcore Giallo fan for many years, and I fall in love with the genre. I fall in love what you can do with the genre, anywhere from making a sex crazed maniac to a police procedural. I love the editing in these films. I love the pacing more than the films themselves, because I feel creating a story off of the sense of dread, an unstoppable killer. I do like kind of the cat and mouse thing in movies, so that's why I've always gravitated to Giallos. And yeah, I love those popular ones as well, Deep Red and all that. I think they're amazing.
When it comes to your because you guys put out some great box sets, do you there's always a different way you can go about doing a box set. What is your favorite angle? Because you can either do director focused box sets, you could do team ups, you can do as this one is a certain genre. Is doing a genre box set your favorite angle going into a box set? Or
honestly, that is a decision that's made by other people. I would prefer just releasing the movies by themselves.
Okay.
Because I like putting focus on things. Sometimes I think, because I'm not, obviously I love what we do in the boxes that we put together, but sometimes I think when you pair things up, things get overshadowed. It's this movie is better than this one, or this was the bad one out of the set.
Yeah.
It's it's kind of like the Homegrown Horrors box set. Fatal Exam is the one that got kind of discussed the least and the most disliked, and it's that's the bad one out of the group. Well, it's not the bad one out of the group. It's just there's all these movies that exist, as well. It's just not those 3 movies exist or they have anything to really do with one another.
It gets compared.
Yeah,
it gets compared. Yeah,
but in a way, the reason why we do it is to play it smart. Is that it's a budget thing, so people can afford all of them, because a lot of movies that they're buying in these sets are movies they've never seen. Sometimes they've never had a US run on DVD, even VHS sometimes. So it's also an easy way for the consumer to purchase at a decent price and able to have the film, because I mean the last thing people are want to do is spend, because if you do that, then you get slip covers and plus a lot of the extras on these things are pretty slim, because one, a lot of these people are dead, and two, they're incredibly hard to find, because they're in another country. So yeah, it's honestly, it's for the fans. I believe is one of the reasons why we do it. I've always liked just having standalone, because I like the movie to stand by itself, and kind of like carry its own merit, rather than people just watching it because it's included in the set. That's just my personal opinion. That doesn't reflect Vinegar Syndrome at all. I think it's a really smart idea. It's just I would make a bad decision and release them by themselves, and then no one purchased some because they've never heard of them, or there's no trailer for them or anything like that. I would be the bad businessman to do that. Vinegar Syndrome is a smart group.
Yeah, it can have. It's kind of like it's kind of got two sides of a coin in a way. Like you could think of it also in more of a positive way, that maybe there's a certain release in a box set that somebody's buying it for that particular movie,
right?
And they discover another movie because they bought it for that other movie.
Yeah, and it's it's also an easier way to get a film out there that a lot of people haven't heard of, to pair it with some films Fatal Exam again is a film that never had a VHS release other than being self-distributed by the filmmakers in St. Louis, Missouri. And then you have kind of like a Lovecraftian with Beyond Dream's Door, and then Winter Beast that has kind of a history as well, both that have been available on DVD before. And you can help get that Fatal Exam that if it was released by itself, it probably would have sold not even close to half of what it sold with the Homegrown Horrors box set. So yeah, it's incredibly smart to do that. But yeah, it just lays eyes on more movies, and that's what we want. We just want people to watch them. You're not getting the golden age of cinema with some of these things. It's about the preservation aspect, and we like these movies growing up and everything like that. I mean, a lot of people watch these movies for the first time and go from some critical standpoint. I'm like, don't do that.
Please don't do that.
It's not a well-made movie.
These movies they're not made for that.
Yeah.
Those movies are not made to be analyzed like scene by scene, line by line, or they're not really analyzed for, critical merit, I guess, or whatever the nonsense is. But you did bring up one aspect that I really forgot to mention early on when it comes to Vinegar Syndrome, and I guess boutique labels in general, is the film preservation aspect of it. Because if you look down this list, all these movies are getting new restorations. They're all being restored and therefore being preserved for longer than they probably would have been preserved and lasted for, because they're getting new restorations, because their film elements are now being cared for probably better than they've ever been cared for before. One of my favorite documentaries is These Amazing Shadows, about the National Film Registry, where a lot of the old classic films have terrible original elements because they didn't take care of them. Effectively, they would throw them in. They either use them until they burned up, or they throw them away. They would dump them in the bay, as they said. So it's like, at least these films are lasting longer than they ever would before, and are being rediscovered for future generations. For me, I just observed that the Gialli sets seem to sell really, really well when it comes to the twice yearly sales that you guys have. Every time somebody shows off their haul from their Vinegar Syndrome sale, I always see Forgotten Gialli, a volume in there.
Yeah.
Some number. I always see those. For me, with this list, the movie that I kind of I really kind of liked the most, was a little surprised about, was Dead Heat.
Yeah.
Dead Heat is kind of a fun mishmash genre horror buddy cop movie that feels so 80s. You know, it stars Treat Williams, who, you know, we just talked about a couple of months ago, was in a Sidney Lumet film earlier
Yeah.
on in the decade, and now he's in a buddy cop zombie movie later on in the decade. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
You know, and this is getting a 4K release, and is I guess just out of my curiosity, is the decision to have some of these get 4K releases versus regular Blu-ray releases dependent on certain factors, or is it kind of just
Yeah. I mean, there's some factors that go into it. Of course, you know, a big one is the condition of the elements. Are we able to do a 4K UHD on them? Another one is that, you know, the Dead Heat's already been on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like we can upgrade drastically, even if we did, you know, a Blu-ray of it. But it's just another incentive for the consumer.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, I mean, 4K UHD is expensive, so like it's you know,
I was gonna say it must be
yeah,
costly.
you just have to kind of, you know, if you're gonna re-release something, you want to do the next upgrade to something. Yeah, we can upgrade the picture, but sometimes people are like, I don't see the difference, you know, because who knows what they're watching it on, you know, what is their vision like? You know, it's just like, you know, it's already HD, so why am I going to spend, you know, $35 on another edition of this movie? So, you know, that's why putting new extras, you know, doing a format that's the movie hasn't been on before, you know, is that's kind of the aspect to it. And that even goes for like sometimes other countries, like, you know, Deadly Games that we did. It had a region free disc from Germany that was, you know, kind of popular really for an import. But again, it was region free. That's the reason why. And, you know, doing that, you know, that's the reason why we did UHD. Also, what does the film look like? You know, is it something that is kind of a spectacle that needs to be seen? Is it gory and goopy? You know, is the colors something that could be exploited as far as on the UHD? You know, so something like, you know, Flesh for Frankenstein. I mean, that's been on Blu-ray from other countries, but I mean, why wouldn't you want that in UHD with how beautiful it is? You know, if you want to see a bunch of animal mutilation and Ebola syndrome, you know, which it just that movie just oozes consistently. So yeah, UHD is kind of a no-brainer.
You want to make sure as a company you're making the most definitive release you can.
Yeah,
you know,
and I mean, there's just some movies that are, you know, just straightforward horror films that, you know, does it warrant a UHD release because of the, you know, of the cost of these things. So it's just you gotta look at that too. And then also the consumer, like, is everybody gonna want to drop, you know, a ton of money on every release? No.
Oh no.
No. And some people again, a lot of people haven't upgraded to 4K UHD, so, you know, it's almost like a special, you know, kind of a special thing. So yeah, I think it's a lot of considerations are taken in.
I say this every so often. I oftentimes see, I don't know, some type of pie graph of like the percentages of which format is selling well. And I just saw one the other day. 53% is still DVD when it comes to the consumer market.
Yeah.
And then a good slice of that is Blu-ray, and then a kind of a smaller sliver is the UHD format, which is relatively new.
Yeah.
And it's very relatively new. And Blu-ray's been around now for a rather long time. And DVD, of course, been around a lot much longer. So you've got to play, you know, in the way the physical media market is going, ups and downs and whatnot. You know, I'm assuming as a company, you got to factor all of those things into it when it comes to marketing and costs and things and all kind of budgetary things. But I was just curious to see what determined what gets a 4K release and what doesn't.
Yeah, so there's
because
a
I know
lot of
Terminal
variables
Island
is the answer, you know.
Yeah. I know Terminal Island got a 4K release. I know we covered that here on the show a while ago, and I watched a much worse aesthetically unappealing version of that. But I knew the movie was good, so I'm like, this must look incredible in 4K.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean,
much better than what
with
this
that, it
is.
was released by
And
Code Red on Blu-ray, and they used the I don't know, it's like they threw the print in a fucking dryer before they actually scanned it or something. It was just so it was just so off with the colors and everything. And Stephanie's movie didn't deserve that at all. It deserved a really, really punch with those colors and just kind of the sweat. I mean, that movie's so sweaty, but you can actually see the sweat now.
It really is. Yes, you can. But other than that, when it comes to these releases, I just want to point out that Curfew is directed by Gary Winnick, who directed completely different movies entirely in Charlotte's Web and 13 Going on 30.
Yeah.
And this was his first film. And I've seen it, and it does look like a first film. It feels like a first film. I just found that very odd. I always love seeing where directors started versus where they go in their careers, and I find first films so fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, sadly, Gary's gone. But a lot. The interviews are a little slim on the Curfew disc, but the people that I spoke to that worked with him, I mean, just loved him to death. He was a very very compassionate person. He worked really hard on that movie in particular, and I think we have 2 interviews on that with Wendell Williams, and then the director or editor Carol, I can't remember, last starts with an A.
Carol Kravitz Akanian.
Yeah, Akanian, that's right.
Yeah.
But yeah, she spoke highly. I mean, they both loved Gary quite a bit. Wendell learned a lot on that movie, ended up working with Clint Eastwood and stuff like that as well.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, it's an oddball movie.
Yes.
I remember, I don't remember when I first saw Curfew. It was something that because I rented it, and I think the cover was like a picture of a house, and there was like a blade coming down the middle. It kind of looked like a slasher film. That's what I thought it was, I think, when I very first saw it. And it wasn't a slasher film at all, but and I remember being a little disappointed, and then years later I rewatched it, and I kind of like the grittiness of this movie with these 2 guys in this house kind of terrorizing this family, and it kind of becomes like a character study of these 2 guys. And Wendell Wellman does a terrific performance in it, and the acting is really kind of the highlight of the film. But yeah, no, I've liked that film for quite a bit. It was fun doing the extras for that. I just wish we could have got more, but sometimes it's weird, how extras go is when I start contacting people, you have a movie that you don't think you're going to have anything, and then you have a movie that they're like, oh my gosh, everybody's going to want to participate.
Yeah. I got
and everybody's like, yeah, no, we don't want to talk about that. And it's like, oh, shit. Well, I thought this was going to be great, So, but yeah, it all follows suit, I mean, you have something like The Beastmaster, which when we were putting in documentary together, I mean, it was such a long time in the making, putting that doc together, but everybody wanted to be a part of it, that was alive, and that was great. No one said no.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure a lot of that, having to say maybe have to hold back on some of that stuff has to do with budget too, because you can only, work so much into one Blu-ray.
Yeah, I mean, kind of. I mean, it depends. I mean, if we have, a movie that I mean, it all depends. I would like to make a documentary on every film we do, but is it something is there something to talk about this?
Yeah.
Or is a couple interviews enough? for this.
Yeah,
For this
is
type
there
of
a
movie.
real story there, like the Six String Samurai documentary, where there's like a real need to kind of get more background information about
Yeah.
other the
Yeah,
actors
I mean,
and the
Sixth String was
yeah
great because I knew Lance prior to everything, and I started working at Vinegar Syndrome. I went to him and I said, I was like, Palm, own this movie, and he's like, yeah, he's like, they sold it years ago. They have everything, so he put me in touch with Palm, and we were talking for a while. It was that movie was in process of getting it signed and getting material for a while, and Lance was always part of it,
yeah
and Lance and I became really good friends, kind of doing the extras. And it was kind of weird because we did it during the height of the pandemic, and we were just like, Lance wanted to be heavily involved with everything, which is great because he's very understanding. He's still a filmmaker today.
yeah
And that was one of the more, I have to say, when you watch it, it moves so smoothly, but that is literally one of the most chaotic productions as far as the documentary goes that I've ever been a
Yeah,
part of.
yeah
I could imagine just watching it. I'm like, because it was all done through, all the interviews were done through through Zoom or Skype or
Yeah.
whatever, like we're doing here, and probably going around to all those people and setting up for that
Well, yeah,
and
it
making
was
all
it
that
was in,
work and
yeah,
scheduling
it
and
was
everything.
insane because I mean we would have Lance would be shooting himself, which he is still,
Yes.
like I said, he's still a filmmaker, so he had all the equipment, so that was kind of easy. But then yeah, we would have someone else be shooting, and then they would be doing the interview, but then they were doing their interview via Zoom through a computer with Lance, because Lance was actually doing the interviews, which something we've never actually done before. Um, but the most difficult day, oh my gosh, man, I was so stressed, is we did the Red Elvises. So we had Lance
yeah
Yeah.
shooting himself. We had three of the Red Elvises in one area, and then the fourth in another area. So we had three shoots going on with Zooms with a bunch of Russians. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, these guys are so crazy. And they just, I mean, the shoot lasted so long and they did such a good job. And it came out way, way better than I thought it would.
yeah
But the amount of footage that we had with, because we recorded the Zooms,
yeah
in order, to understand like the pacing of everything, to, help sync up. And then we had Lance's footage. We had, the footage from the shoots, all that going to Elijah, who edited the piece, who edited Beastmaster, who's on. Elijah Drenner is such a wonderful editor to begin with. He directed, that guy Dick Miller that came out.
yeah
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah, we talked
he's
about
done.
that.
He edited Beastmaster. He edited, Six String. He edited Ticks, Flesh for Frankenstein. Yeah, him and I get along really, really well, and he's always a great person to work with because he really understands the aspect and the storytelling of these filmmakers. It's always
yeah
good when you have a director that's an editor be able to
yeah
tell the story. And yeah, with, like I said, with Lance being so involved with Six String, Don Coscarelli being so involved with the Beastmaster, um, it was nice to have that, and Don actually loving what we did versus him not actually liking the movie was,
yeah
he, because it was so funny learning that he's not a big fan of the movie because his vision was stripped from him. But it was fun. It was cool because he kind of had like a new appreciation for it with what we were doing. Just all around great guy. It was such a great, and plus it's surreal for me because I grew up watching these dudes make movies, and now we're like texting back and forth and like, bullshitting and, becoming friends on the side. I mean, I fucking saw Six String Samurai in film school, for Christ's sakes,
Oh
oh
and
man.
it
wow
was like,
I wish I saw it
Yeah, and it
then.
was like, it blew me away then. And I just was always thinking, man, this movie looks so shitty on DVD. Like, it was so it was like,
Not
yeah,
not
it was kind of a
anymore. Not
no-brainer to
anymore. It
do it
doesn't.
because I mean, Lance's vision of that movie is just like so beyond. It's such it's such a crazy concept and crazy movie. I actually like hearing people that don't like it talk about it because I find it interesting.
Yeah.
Because it really
We,
is
we
kind of the perfect film school movie. Is
yeah.
understanding having a bunch of idiot kids make a movie, but they actually know how to make a movie. That's such a
Yeah.
wonderful
Yeah.
thing to learn and hear about. And Lance had the journal that he still had that was in the booklet, and he expanded that because that already existed. I think that was in the Palm Pictures DVD, but he expanded a lot on that. Also more reflection because it's the DVD was like 25 years old or some crazy shit like that. uh
Yeah.
um but yeah, he's a hardcore filmmaker, and it was great to see that. And then also the people that we had behind it. I mean, Brian Tyler working on that film, and then
Oh yeah.
it,
That's
it was so
badass. Yeah.
funny scheduling Brian because when we were having the discussions about who to get, because the thing was is we couldn't find Jeff, Jeffrey Falcon, who he did the costume design, he did the choreography, he's the lead in the movie, he helped produce the movie,
Yeah.
and he's vanished. He's completely vanished. We spent like a year looking for him. And then the kid too. We couldn't find the kid. We just knew that he was sometime at some point he was playing basketball for some high school in California, but we literally couldn't find him or his parents. And I was stumped on both. And I typically don't get stumped. So it was I was very frustrated. And at one point we were worried, because it was like, if we're going to make a documentary about this, if we don't have two of those people, what do we do? And Lance, obviously the Red Elvises were part of it. And the two big ones other than that was Brian Tyler, and then oh my gosh, the producer, he's like the CEO of Lionsgate, Michael Burns.
Oh okay.
Yeah,
Okay, you
so
got it. I knew you were gonna get it, man.
yeah. So Michael Burns, he's like the COO of Lionsgate, and
Yeah.
I'm like, how the fuck do you talk to the COO of Lionsgate?
Yeah. Like, what channels do you have to go through to
Yeah,
get
and
to
it was
him?
like Brian Tyler's fucking scoring Marvel movies, like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that would be a tough
So I was
schedule.
like,
Tough
I
schedule.
was like, I
Yeah.
don't know if we're gonna get these guys. So it was so funny talking to, we had a friend reach out to some agents, Brian, and I get this email from Brian Tyler, and out of the blue, and he's like, hey, my agents are saying that you're making a documentary about Six String. He's like, I want to be a part of it. Let's make it happen. And I'm like, holy shit, like this is
Yes.
great. Thank you so much. And he's like, my schedule is insane. He's like, we literally have to do it between like a break for the orchestra. So like they had like an hour and a half break, and we had to postpone it like multiple times. And it was like, Brian or his agent like messages me, or his secretary, whatever it has, his helper. I always hate saying secretary. I don't know what people like to be called because it's assistant. There we go. Assistant. That's the proper word. So she's like, hey, we could do it like today. And I'm like, okay, like I call Lance and I'm like, dude, you got to drop whatever you're doing. He just does he has a baby too. And I'm like, just give the baby to your wife. We got to do this immediately. So yeah, it worked out well. They got to reconnect, which was great. And they, because they haven't really spoke in a while. So they were able to reconnect, and that's a lot of fun too. A lot with this is that reconnecting people because they fell out of touch, or they just kind of all went their separate ways. I mean, we do that in life too, so it's completely relatable. And then yeah, Michael Burns, I was Lance was trying, I was trying, and then finally we got his assistant, and I was like, does he want to be a part of it? And Michael was just totally on board, because that. Because the movie kickstarted so many careers, and it
Yeah.
helped. And then Lance had, of course, the DP Christian, and then a couple of his friends do interviews too that were essential, because I said, Lance, better than I do, who made this movie with you, who
Yeah.
helped you the most.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he had some names and some friends, and it turned out to be really, really perfect. And it's just I'm glad with what we had. But yeah, it was crazy trying to find Jeffrey Falcon, because it seemed that he, his brother that worked on the movie too passed away. And I contacted actually his widow, and I said, I'm sorry to hear what happened, but do you know where Jeff is? And the most thing we know is that he moved to China and got into some serious trouble, and then just kind of like disappeared. And it's funny, Cynthia Rothrock was helping me find him too, because she knew him pretty well, because they made films together in Hong Kong, and he was actually on set sometimes with her, and she knew him very, very well. And I was like, hey, when's the last time you heard from Jeff? And she's like, oh my God, I haven't heard from him in like 20 years. And so she was contacting her friends, and it just always a dead end. And I'm like,
what a treasure.
I was
hunt.
like, I mean, honestly, like I don't know, maybe a year, 8 months, something like that, of just trying to find Jeff. And I was like, let's make a documentary about this.
I was gonna say
that's a documentary in and of itself.
And in a sense, it just adds more mystery. It's like he moved on past the movie. Like his character is him in real life, and he is out there somewhere.
But it was really cool because Lance had all this festival footage when they were doing Traveling with the Film back in the day. So he had all this like VHS tapes, because they were recording, and there was a lot of footage of Jeff, goofing off and everything like that. So yeah, that was mixed in with the doc, and Elijah's a miracle worker for what he is anyway. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. So you have like super invasive stuff like that, and then you have easy things, that just come together. But yeah, I really love when people, one, they don't want to talk about it. As far as like, not they say no, it's more or less like, I don't really know, I don't have much to say about the picture, and I'm like, then I want to interview you, because I bet you anything you have the best stories, because they always do. It's the people that are like, oh yeah, I love this movie, I'll talk about it all day, and it's like, they're the ones that clam up and don't have the good stories. But anyways, I mean, any participation is always warranted and wanted, and always thankful for it, because I mean, a lot of people are just spending their day talking about some, shit that they maybe don't like or have forgotten about or don't think is important. And that's always fun too, is to make people understand like a new appreciation for this project, because sometimes you'll just have a movie that people, the director made and is ashamed of, and you contact them. They kind of happened with Through the Fire. I've been a huge fan of Through the Fire for such a long time, and I know the movie kind of gets shit on occasionally. Occasionally mean like almost all the time. But I'm a big fan of the movie and those guys, and it was with Gary and Jay and Brad, they really kind of looked past the movie a little bit and just kind of focused on everything else they were doing. I was talking to him, and I'm like, I personally think this movie is great, because it's low budget, it doesn't work sometimes, but I've always been a fan of Through the Fire. It's one of those movies that I would love to remake, because I think there's such a great story there, but it just never really achieves certain things, and like they gear up for this big battle, but then it's like not really a battle. It's just, there's so many like, oh my God, this is gonna happen in the movie, and it doesn't. But when we were doing the interviews and I did a commentary with Gary on the film, we actually had two commentaries on that disc, which is funny. One with Jay, Brad, and Gary, moderated by Zach Garlson, actually watching the Gates of Hell 2 cut of that film.
Yeah.
And then I did a commentary with Gary on Through the Fire, the Through the Fire cut. And, we just had a great time talking about regional filmmaking and just kind of like filmmaking in general. And I try to moderate more commentaries if I have the time, just because, I have a big appreciation for them, these people, these filmmakers. And, and then sometimes I have to get in there, like Scanner Cop 2. I mean, when we were talking about Scanner Cop, I was like, as long as we do Scanner Cop 2, that's all I care about.
It's got,
I was like,
can't have
yeah,
one
I don't
without the
care
other.
about Scanners. I don't care about Scanner Cop 1. I was like, I just want to talk about Scanner Cop 2 forever. Because that movie is absolutely fucking insane to me, and I love it so much. And I was like, as long as we do Scanner Cop 2 on 4K UHD, that's all I care about. And
I gotta get that release. Yeah, I've been wanting.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, like Scanner Cop 2 is like, I don't even know, man. It's so fucking insane and so intense, and just it, like, I don't know, man. It is so gory, and the special effects are so insane. It's like it. I was talking to Steve, and I was like, you step in, and one, you're making a sequel to Scanners. You have this Cronenberg film that had 2 lackluster sequels. You're rebooting it with Scanner Cop, which did a good job, because I think Scanner Cop is way better than Scanners 2 or 3. So you have that, but how do you step up from Scanner Cop? You make Scanner Cop 2, but you just take everything to 100% the next level and just make this like ultra gory horror film. And I was like, I have to do a commentary on this movie, because I and Steve's such a funny dude, man. He's so good. He's a Cormanite. So he had great stories, and Patrick Kilpatrick is such a hell of a person, and a friend at this point, because I've known Patrick for years, because I've been overly dangerously obsessed with Class of 1999 my entire life, and I'm putting together a book. I have been putting together a book for Class of 1999 for like 15-20 years. And Patrick's a great resource for that, for the book. And it was so funny. I called him up, and I'm like, hey Pat, we're doing The Cellar, and we're doing Scanner Cop 2. And he's like, oh my god, I love Scanner Cop 2. And then he just, like, Pat's such a good storyteller, he just starts telling all these crazy ass stories about making Scanner Cop 2. The very first thing he says, he's like, when we were making that movie, he's like, I would make my veins pop out of my head. He's like, that's what I was good at. And I was like, what? It's like, that's not special effects? He's like, no, the veins that you see, other than when I explode at the end, like, my veins, or that's my actual veins. And I said, are you fucking kidding me? He's like, yeah, they would have to lay pillows down and mattresses because I would pass out after the scene.
Oh, that's not healthy.
And I'm like,
I mean, damn.
Like, that sounds dangerous as shit. What are you talking about? And so, like, yeah, I mean, he was a great resource, and his interview is hilarious. I mean, everybody on that disc is really, really funny to chat with, and everything. Just a great, even Simon Barrett, who wrote You're Next, and The Guest.
Yeah.
He's on there too, because I know his love for Scanner Cop. And I mean, he was on the extras for Winter Beast too, because I know how big of a fan he is of that, which, again, I'm on the commentary of Winter Beast with Mark. Just because Mark's an uncle at this point. So I'm sorry, I'm rambling. I just go all day.
Oh, it's okay.
Oh,
man.
no.
We appreciate the passion, man.
Yeah.
But it's the one thing and this is something that was kind of brought up with one of our other guests, Justin Beam, where he likes to do with his features that he does with his company. he likes to primarily focus on getting people that were involved in making the movies, and it seems like that's what you guys like to do too, for the most part.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Instead of getting historians or anything like that,
Yeah. I mean, historians are good. It just depends. I mean, here's the thing: they weren't there.
That's what Justin said.
Yeah.
He's like, I want somebody that was there.
Yeah, it's like you can't get a better historian than even the still photographer that was on the film that was standing there watching everything happen. Like, no one was there. You can hear stories, you can relay stories, you can listen to other people tell stories, but in the end, you got to talk to the people that were there. So no, it just depends. It's actually one of those things that I have my wish list. When I create, because I mean I am the producer of the extras for these discs, so I always like kind of make my wish list. Who do I think that would have stories to tell in this film? Obviously, I always want to hear the director's side. I love to hear the editing side, because I this still to this day, I mean, I went to fucking film school, is that your movie's made in the editing room. Your editor makes your movie. Like, as much as you would direct and everything, your editor is your shit. The only reason Tarantino is because Sally Minke was like pretty much the best editor to ever walk the fucking face of the earth. And also dealing with Tarantino's like manic, like crazy shit that he does on his movies, who can actually translate that into a cohesive story is Sally Minke, but anyways, I always like to talk to the editor, because they're the ones making the movie too. Composer, because I'm always obsessed with soundtracks. I love to hear what they did, what they used, the time frame, their inspirations, and of course, handful of actors. I like speaking to stunt guys, because I think stunt guys are insane.
They're unsung heroes,
and that's kind of like with Scanner Cop 2 and Martial Law. Jeff was a stunt coordinator on those movies, and they were blowing him through walls and stuff. He dislocated his shoulder. Cynthia put people in the hospital in Martial Law, because she was from Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, you hit people. You don't do this fake out thing that they do in the US. So she was fucking hitting people and hospitalizing them. That's a fucking great story to be told. So I have like my wish list. And then the thing that I always do as well is, like, I ask the filmmakers, I'm like, who do you think we should interview? Like, who helped you make this movie? Who really stood out as far as like making this? And then sometimes you'll get people that weren't even part of the production. They were like a friend or something. And I always do that, and then kind of just whittle that down. Certain things work out, certain things don't, but you still make that person look good. They may have one or two lines in the documentary, but you don't put the whole thing. So I like doing the bigger pieces too, because it's really tough to watch 6 or 7 interviews on a disc. It's just easier to watch like one bit.
Yeah, just make it a documentary.
Yeah. I mean, I think that worked out well with Ticks. When we did the doc for Ticks, because the whole thing is like, who do we make this movie about? The doc about? Because you have to have your through line when you're doing this. And Tony's Tony's great. I love Tony to death. But he's also very like protective and quiet. So I was like, well, he can't, he's not going to be our through line on this. So I was like, well, it's got to be Usna, Brian Usna, because I mean, he loves being in front of the camera. He's a pioneer of all these movies. He's made so many things happen. He's such a great guy. And then, Usna's like, don't make it about me, talk to Doug Beswick. And I'm like, I was like, we're talking to Doug. And he's like, no, Doug has been working on this movie since 1975. And I'm like, oh. I was like, so I called Doug up, and I'm, I was like, hey, I was like, Brian's saying that you worked on this movie from 1975? He's like, yeah. He's like, I'm the creator of Ticks. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. It's like, you didn't say it in the beginning. I was like, I just thought you were just doing special effects. He's like, no, I wrote the treatment. He's like, Rick Baker and I designed the Ticks together. And I'm like, what? I was like, Rick Baker's not even credited in the movie. He's like, yeah, he's like, Rick and I created the little monsters in 1975. And, he goes, and that's what the part of the whole doc is about Doug trying to get this movie off the ground for 30 fucking years or 20 years.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's great because it's about his treatment. The got turned into, went into another guy for Brian or something. I can't remember his last name, wrote the script, and then it turned out to be this huge thing. And here I'm thinking like K&B did a lot of the effects, and here it's Doug Beswick that did all the special effects, and K&B just did a couple shots in the film. And I'm like, well, this needs to be told. Like, Doug Beswick is the creator of these ticks in like its entirety. So that was our through line. So yeah, I mean, even when you do these things, you discover things on set, or not on set, but in the midst of conversations and talking to these people, finding out who's doing what, and you learn as you go, and you just kind of then after that you just kind of let it take its own life, and just find an editor that's good for the project, because we have a handful of editors that do, and I really pick the editor that I think would be best to tell that story, depending. So then Justin Beams edited a couple things for me, as well. And Justin and I are pretty good friends, and we always try to help each other out, because we kind of know what movies we're both after, and then because he kind of has like the same thing with connections as myself, so I'll help him get somebody, he'll help me get somebody. He's a great asset. And then he started editing too, so he did the editing for our our Norway disc from TerraVision. He did he's editing the video violence stuff that we're putting out through TerraVision. So Justin's a good friend of mine.
Well, speaking of partner labels, let's go through some of the partner label stuff that we got here.
Nice transition.
Yeah, I picked my moment. but basically, you just got like special features for the special features right there. So take that for what you will right there. You got some inside background information on how special features were made. So but yes, let's so run down the list of the partner label stuff that we got.
Okay, so first up is from partner label Culture Shock. Culture Shock releasing, we have Girlfriend from Hell. From Fun City Editions, this is my most anticipated one, is Morven Collar. And from Deaf Crocodile Films, we have The Unknown Man of Shandigor.
And that's a debut. That's a new label there.
Is that a new label?
Yeah, that's their first title.
Okay. Oh, speaking of new label, we have Canadian International Pictures with The Ernie Game. And then we have Dockstar Pictures, Coco D, Coco Da. And then TerraVision, who we just mentioned, has Killing Spree. And then from the label American Genre Film Archive, or AGFA for short, for all the cool kids who want to be cool at home, The Monster of Camp Sunshine and Honeymoon of Terror. And then from Utopia Distribution is El Planeta. And then a Yellow Veil Pictures is Midnight Swim, or The Midnight Swim. And then Altered Innocence is Pals. And there's a Spanish title, Colegos?
Yeah.
Colegos. And then Saturn Core's audio and video, we have Sinistre? Yeah.
Just Sinister,
Yeah, Sinister. And yeah, those are the partner labels. Or did I miss some, Steve?
No, I think you got them all.
Yeah, the only thing that I don't think we mentioned is the third VSP, which is Scary on 61st Street.
Oh, yes.
Yes, you're right. Yeah,
yes.
Yep, we did miss
which
that
that's still like, the Vinegar Syndrome, a production side of it. So
yeah, that is part of the VSP line. That's your third VSP release, if memory serves. Yes.
And quite the doozy of a movie.
Yes. As all of these VSP pictures, sub-label films are. As we've learned,
I watched
New York
Scary
Ninja
on
alone.
61st Street recently, and I was like, what the fuck? Yeah, so that was something I caught up on later. As I heard we were doing it, and I heard the people talking about it at festivals, and finally I got around to watching it, and it's like, holy shit, oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, we
The cover art,
just watch it.
cover art for
It's fucking
fantastic.
crazy.
Yeah, there's a trailer for it for anyone interested directly on vinegarsyndrome.com. If you look for the scary of 61st, there's a trailer here at the bottom. Yeah, I just intrigued by it just by the cover alone. It's just a mirror with
Tip of the iceberg.
blood splattered
That's
around
tip
it.
of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
I think Andrew was able to watch more of these than me because we like to try to like watch movies so we can talk about them on the show, so you can either help people decide on whether it's worth buying or just give our opinions and see what people think. But
yeah, I try to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically my role for the podcast is watch as many movies as I possibly can in between episodes. So as many movies get announced, I just keep adding it to the watch list, and that's my goal. That's my thing for the week. So when it comes to Vinegar Syndrome and then the partner labels, it's tougher because a lot of these films aren't available anywhere to watch.
Yeah.
And that's part of the magic, I guess, of Vinegar Syndrome and other boutique labels, that we're getting to see these really for the first time anywhere. There is we don't dismiss streaming here on Chasing Labels, even though we're all about physical media, but these movies are extremely tough to find streaming. And if you do find them streaming, the quality is usually really, really bad. We're talking like VHS 4:3 level of quality on YouTube.
Yeah.
Types of stuff. It's pretty tough. But for these releases here, the biggest one for me when I saw it, I kind of leaped, was Morven Collar, the Lynn Ramsey film, and starring Samantha Morton. And this is Lynn Ramsey's second film, and this is gonna go right along with the recent Blu-ray release of Ratcatcher from the Criterion Collection. So if you want to start off your Lynn Ramsey section of your collections at home, you have her first two films, plus you can find her more recent films more readily available in what's the film that I can't think of?
Kevin. Need to talk about Kevin.
Yes, Let's Talk About Kevin, and then of course the Joaquin Phoenix film.
You Were Never Really Here.
Yeah, which I have on Blu-ray somewhere here on the couch. Yeah. But I can't remember where it is. You Were Never Really Here. And yeah, I was just so surprised to see this and so happy to see it. It's getting a new 2K restoration from an interpositive, which is different than the original camera negative that we talked about earlier. And I know Brad could probably specify that a little bit more, the difference between original camera negative and interpositive. Isn't it like one generation removed?
Well, yeah, I mean, it just depends on what it's used for. So like when you have interpositive, internegatives, like one is used to make prints of the film, so that's obviously going to be your lower quality because it's been touched and handled and used. So typically original camera negatives aren't touched at all, and they just need to be properly stored in order to, because it's clean, it's good, it's not being run through machines and shit like that. So it just depends. I mean, typically like the OCN goes into not a canister, like, hopefully it doesn't go in a canister, but I mean, you say canister, but the proper storage for that. And then sometimes the director, producer, gets the IN and then the IP used for prints or whatnot.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm with Andrew here. It's a big time release. The other one I personally got a chance to watch was Pals, which is a Eloy de la Iglesias film, and I really enjoyed it. It's a great coming of age film, but it's also got a dark edge to it, and of course, if you've watched any other Eloy de la Iglesias films, he was, very much about sexuality, like
big time, yeah.
And especially male nudity. He didn't give a shit.
Yeah, the past 6 months have been Iglesias, Severin
put out Severin put out 5 titles of his last year.
He's a unique filmmaker, so it's nice to see his stuff come back out and people actually see it now.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed that one. So I've already picked up. I pre-ordered this one, and Marvin Carl, and also I haven't watched it, but I'm just taking a chance here. Is Sinister? I decided to pick up Sinister. So
Nice.
tell us about Sinister if you can.
It's it fits Saturn's core label a lot. I'm a huge fan of Saturn's core, what they're doing, mainly because it's a lot of SOV stuff,
Yeah.
and just DIY filmmaking. Yeah, it's how do I put it?
It's a breath being taken.
Yeah, it's not going to be anything you expect if you've like stayed away from reading anything about it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to really give it away. I mean, it is kind of like standard per se,
Yeah.
but there are like you'll I think you'll dig it. Do you like SOV in general and then kind of that aspect and like almost way it's like a way of, I consider even SOV a way of storytelling in a way, even though it's not. It's obviously just shot on video. But when you have shot on video movies, there's a certain way that the story is being told. Mainly because the camera doesn't move,
Yeah.
So your camera it's almost like voyeuristic. It has an edge to it. But yeah, no, it's a fun movie. But as long as you like that type of thing, you'll dig it.
The thing is I'm pretty open to almost anything.
Yeah.
It just there has to be certain elements that capture me, but I'm somebody that is an aspiring film person himself, so I've made things. only make things at a low level anyway, so I can appreciate seeing somebody make something for nothing, with nothing, and do something with it enough for people to want to make Blu-rays out of it. That would be great, I mean, like I'm only interested more and more. It didn't matter how low the quality is. I mean, I got stuff on my shelf that probably most people don't want to watch, like but it's interesting to me because I understand the process. So it's hopefully that's I think that's what happens a lot with people that buy from places like Vinegar Syndrome or like Severin, and who are doing what a lot of people would call the lower ends of cinema, is that they understand that there's a process there and that these people should be appreciated too, not just high art. But some of the lower stuff, has its own place.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love what the partner labels are doing. I mean, I have
it gives you a chance to veer out into some other places that you don't necessarily do with your main brand. And I think that's smart. I think that and you guys keep adding more labels every day, it seems.
Yeah.
Like every month.
Yeah, I mean, it's just more movies and more exposure on these things. And with TerraVision, I mean, I can speak on behalf of that because that's my partner label. Is that I do a lot with Vinegar Syndrome, but there's a lot of things that Vinegar Syndrome doesn't do. And one of like really Ryan and myself at TerraVision, we're just like TerraVision's our brains, and we already started with WNUF and then Norway, and now we have Killing Spree, and Video Violence is coming out later this year. And we have a bunch of other stuff, and it's going to be the whole basis of the label. Because it's funny, we've had a couple people already ask, because WNUF's a modern shot on video movie that takes place in 1987. Norway is a 2014 Greek vampire film about a vampire that can't stop dancing or he'll die. And then we have, Killing Spree, which is, shot on 16 millimeter, but the negative's lost. So it's a restoration from, the tape, which is, Killing Spree gets shoved in as a shot on video movie, but it's not. It was actually shot on film. But so we have, a 16 millimeter movie, we have a digital movie, and we have a shot on video movie. And then Video Violence, of course, shot on video too. So we've had a lot of people ask, like, what's going on? Is we kind of want the label to be kind of unpredictable in the sense of like, we're just going to do whatever the kind of hell we want. And it's just films that we really love that kind of just really don't get love. Or they are loved, they just deserve maybe a physical media release like WNUF, because that's like a beloved film now, and it's only like like 5 years old, 6 years old now, and it's becoming like a staple. So that was just felt right to launch with that. I love what Saturn Score is doing, because they're really like, there's the shot on video world, and then there's like the underground shot on video world, and that's kind of what Saturn Score is focusing on. Culture Shock Releasing is doing a lot of cool stuff. I mean, they have been for a little while. And Del Pozo kind of had his other label before that. So it was kind of nice to see them grow. And then it was funny, because it was like when they first signed on, and Girlfriend from Hell was their opening, their launch title. Their launch title through Vinegar, through OCN for us. I was talked to Del Pozo, and I was like, well, what extras, are we doing? What are we doing? I just asked them, what are they doing? And I was like, I'd love to be a part of that, because Girlfriend from Hell was, something that I've been trying to get for a while. And, I knew the filmmakers all pretty well. And, I was able to do like I think I do 3 interviews on that disc and moderate them. So that was a lot of fun. And then of course, awesome. We have Killing Spree, which I'm incredibly proud of. And, with that movie we put so many extras on that disc with new interviews. We produced a whole documentary for that film, so it's a feature length documentary that's made on that. And then it was shot on video stuff. You can't really fix the picture. You can't do a new scan or something and do a restoration. However, we did scan the original master. So we rescanned it, and then Tim wanted to do some color grading, and kind of like it's not a restoration process, but did some color grading and stuff like that on it. So it is essentially like a new transfer in a way that's it's never been seen, which he was happy about. So it's different from the SRS release that happened like a couple years ago or last year, something like that. We produced a bunch of new extras on it, so we're happy with how it came out. And that's the whole thing. They're just trying to get as many extras, or even like Norway, the movie is completely abandoned for the most part from distributors. It only had a Greek release on DVD in its home country. So it was a film that I've loved since I saw it at a film festival in 2014. And, I was just always trying to get distribution for that, trying to help people discover it. And just no one really wanted to take a chance, because the foreign market's really tough. It's hard to sell a foreign movie to people because they don't want to read.
Yeah.
So
but
shit, I'll take a chance on it.
Oh yeah, movies are great all over the world, guys. Come on, I mean,
I know. Come on, read some subtitles.
But
do something.
Yeah. Well, I think we've gotten a lot here, guys.
We have gotten a lot. I just wanted to.
Anything else you want to add there, Andrew?
I'll say I watched The Ernie Game from Canadian International Pictures.
Yeah.
It's a really, really good film. It's very existential, very interesting, kind of loosely plotted. Like, you're kind of just following this guy along, and he's just like kind of living his life, but he's kind of a mess of a person individually. Like, he can't really get his life on track, and he's kind of relying on other people. Really good film. So I'm really curious about the release of it. It looks like it has some short films on here as well. I'm assuming by the director,
I believe that's that's what they did. Yes, that's a new label too that's starting out.
Yeah,
so
brand new label.
Yeah, it's an interesting movie. especially for their launch title. But I think it kind of for what else they're doing and coming out, I think it fits pretty well with what they're planning. Very similar, not, I guess it's not similar, but smart can be like with Saturn's Core, releasing the documentary about Wave before they actually got into their weirdness of their label.
That's smart.
You know.
Yeah, and I just want to comment on how great the cover art is for a lot of these releases. Killing Spree has a fantastic cover art, and just a great back art as well.
I mean, dude, most Vinegar Syndrome artwork
even
is just
Girlfriend
amazing.
Experience.
It's just all amazing.
Girlfriend from Hell has a great cover art
awesome.
too.
Yeah.
I mean, for those of you listening at home, the premise of the movie sounds really great on paper, where basically God's bounty hunter has to hunt down the devil that's possessing a teenage girl. That's kind of the premise of that movie. And God's bounty hunter is played by, what's his name from? He's in Twin Peaks. And
I'm drawing a blank.
Remember his name. Dana Ashbrook.
Dana Ashbrook. Yeah.
Dana Ashbrook, who's Bobby Briggs in Twin Peaks and Twin Peaks: The Return, and the movie Fire Walk with Me. As a big David Lynch fan, as I am, that was just kind of really cool to see somebody right before Twin Peaks would come out, a couple of years after this movie. Well, actually, 1 year after this movie, so it's really close to that. And also, the cover of Pals is done by Sister Hyde, who we plan on having on the podcast sometime in the future. Because I remember her posting that right when it was announced.
Yeah.
So that was really, really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Steven?
Yeah. Most of the stuff here, most of the artwork everything you guys put out, the artwork draws you in right away, and it makes me want to look into it more. So I think that you guys do a really great job with making sure that the package itself makes you want to investigate further.
Yeah, no, we appreciate that.
Yeah,
That's why I said have Justin Liberty on, because he's one of the masterminds behind all of that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and Vinegar Syndrome has probably the best and most unique slipcovers of anyone I've ever bought from. Just the quality of the slipcovers, not only with the cover art that we just talked about, but the material that you guys use is unlike anything anyone else ever uses. Yeah. Like, even that has a lot of effort put into it. Just want to throw.
Well, we appreciate it. I mean, honestly, like, obviously biased, but with what we do, I mean, if people are paying for a product, I mean, you want to try to get them the best around with everything, as far as the disc, the cardboard that comes with it, the transfers, the extras, we don't skip out on anything, I guess is what I'm trying to say. We don't do anything cheap. And, the whole idea about, I mean, in a way, I guess I never looked at it this way, is that, even like kind of the protective cover with the cardboard is about preserving the disc longer so it doesn't get damaged or something, or the cases that we use, rather than those like cheap Amrays that crack so easy. It's just we as John Hammond once said, we spare no expense.
Yes.
Hopefully, hopefully our discs don't come alive and eat you.
Well, it wouldn't be a bad way to go. I'll take it.
That'd be amazing.
That should be in a movie. Somebody should make that, where some Blu-ray collector guy is in his room. Suddenly, all his Blu-rays start coming alive on the shelf, and then eat him. That might be some kind of metaphor for how your things own you, I guess. But I think that's a great place to stop. Brad, thank you for talking with us.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, this was we anytime we can get a guest that just will you divulge so much info that we couldn't even have asked you questions about, that you just it spewed out of you, and we were like, we just sit back, just listen.
Yes. I have a problem with just not shutting up. So
oh no, well, that's a good problem for a podcast, but you don't have to apologize for that, because people that listen to like what we put out, the people going to work, or they're on their way to work, or they're working, and we like long form conversation. That's the thing that's a problem with a lot of things these days is they're too short segmented. I like having conversations and whether it's one-sided or two-sided, I don't care. I want to. We brought you on because we wanted to hear your perspective. So we really appreciate you taking the time and yeah, we'd love to have you back again one day.
Yeah. Just let me know. Love to come back.
Awesome, man. Well, with that said, Brad, if anybody wants to contact you, what's the best place?
I'm mainly just on Twitter at Brad F. Henderson.
Okay.
I don't really use any other social media per se.
All right.
I try to limit
Andrew?
it.
Yeah, well, yeah, we should.
Yeah.
Andrew?
Yeah. You can find me on Twitter at Kevzilla06, following Brad and whatever he's doing, and also our YouTube channel, Chasing Labels.
And you can find me on Facebook, Stephen Billings. You can find me also at the other Chasing Labels stuff, whether it be on Twitter, Instagram, and you can follow me on Letterboxd at Chasing Labels. And you can find the audio for the podcast on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Stitcher. Thanks again for listening, and hey, keep on watching them movies.
I know I will.